Welcome, friends, to the Yoga and Podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Weber, a yoga and Pilates teacher who is living, learning, and being a human every day here in beautiful Austin, Texas. And I'm constantly curious about all things yoga and. This podcast is an invitation to open up your aperture to how we might view yoga. Is it possible that yoga is more than something that you do on a piece of rubber, but could it be infused into other aspects of regular daily life? Today, we will explore the subject of yoga and anxiety. I'm especially excited to have back on the show. Check out episode number 48, Yoga and the Concept of Removing Other When You Get a Chance. She is a yoga teacher and a yoga therapist in training, the knowledgeable Leilani Clark. Leilani will be talking all about yoga and the different aspects of anxiety, from social anxiety to high functioning anxiety and more. In this conversation, she also ties in the concept of otherness and how it can affect anxiety, which is so fascinating. On a personal note, before yoga, I had zero skills in dealing with my own anxiety, and it's because of yoga that I am a stronger person who can now deal with stress in a way that doesn't knock me down every single time like it used to. This is why I believe so much that yoga is for everyone, and why I love the podcast, which I hope highlights the practical application and the usefulness of yoga, as well as celebrates the people who are teaching these necessary and healthy life skills. I know you will get something good from this episode, so let's sit back, relax, and enjoy, y'all. Co-teacher of the Body Bliss events, and also a lovely human being, Leilani Clark. Sorry, I messed up your name.
It's all right. It is a tongue twister. You got this.
The red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather. Okay. Joining us on today's episode is previous guest on the show. Check out episode number 48, Yoga and the Concept of Removing Other When You Get a Chance. She is a yoga teacher, a yoga therapist in training, co-teacher of the Body Bliss events, and also a lovely human, Leilani Clark. Hey, Leilani, how are you?
Hi, Ashley. I'm well. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me on again. And I just want to also thank you for your awareness and what you are doing to bring awareness to how yoga impacts individuals on and off the mat, and your commitment to the field. Like, I just love the energy that you bring to your classes and to this podcast, and I know that your listeners feel that energy and feel that love. So, thank you.
Well, thank you. And I'm so grateful for you for taking time out of your day to come back on the show. We're talking all about yoga and anxiety today, which is really just such a fascinating subject. And in our conversations, you know so much about this subject, and I'm so excited for it to be heard today on the show. Would you like to introduce yourself just a little bit more to people who may not know you? Tell us who you are, what you're about.
Sure. Nutshell wise, I'm a health advocate, right? Helping women with chronic pain identify the root causes of their anxiety and restore balance in their lives. So.
I'm sure we're going to get to know you even more throughout the episode, but anything else you want to add?
Yoga is that primary means that I do that with, right? And so, being able to break down barriers for individuals, being able to bring consciousness into their every action, to live in alignment with our highest self. to really provide opportunities that lead to conscious transformations.
That's amazing. So, how does yoga show up in your daily life since it's such a part of your life and a part of your work?
Right. Quite frankly, it's what sustains me. And I mean that in the whole complete sense. It's a major reason why I'm even walking today, and we can save that for another episode. But yoga impacts my thinking patterns, my attitude, my actions towards myself, my actions towards others around me. It's really been the catalyst in helping me embody the notion that my body is a temple housing a divine light, right? And really balancing that humanity with divinity and how that shifts what what we do, why we do it, and knowing that the how has already been taken care of by the divine, right?
Mm. Wow, that's a great way to explain it. That's exactly, I mean, I feel a lot the same of how yoga is what sustains me as well. And it's how you take care of yourself. Like it's such a great, that's a great answer. So today's topic is all about yoga and anxiety. Why did you choose that title exactly?
So, fun little tidbit, right? This is a pre-COVID tidbit. So, statistics from the National Institute of Mental Health, and according to them, 31.1% of adults in the U.S. will actually experience anxiety at some point in their lives.
Mm.
So, and that was pre-COVID, right? So, um, in 2021, with the uncertainty surrounding COVID-19, with political unrest, with racial unrest, it's a lot on our nervous systems. But we don't have to be victim to that chaos. And yoga provides so many amazing tools, from breath work to movement to meditation and the gong. Um, when we recognize that our thoughts and behaviors are all vibrational, we have a way to anchor in the midst of these worldly storms. And and I think another really important thing is that individuals experiencing anxiety often retract, right? Um, and so I just want to take a moment to say to yoga and podcast listeners who are experiencing anxiety that you're not alone. You like sometimes it's just really hard to talk about.
Mm. Yeah. And I imagine it's just this vicious spiral that you spiral downward when you don't want to talk about it. You have it. You don't know how to help yourself, and it just feeds more and more.
Exactly. And it often um, we can go into a cycle, right, where we talk about remuneration a lot, about negative thought patterns, and that just exactly have you, as you've stated, Ashley, with that cyclical behavior and, you know, this track of I'm the only one that has this, or that's so common to you that you don't know that there's another way to feel, right?
Yeah.
Like they can be on both sides of the coin, really.
Mhm.
And so as we get into how anxiety can manifest in the body a little bit later, and on our show today, let's maybe keep that in mind and come back and cycle back to that because we can really delve deep into a little bit into how anxiety manifests in the body and how it impacts the mind.
I love what you're saying, and I'm excited to know more. in the previous episode that you did with us, you did it with two of your other coworkers and friends, and the concept
Yes.
of removing other. So,
Yes.
how, if at all,
Yep.
how is otherness
Yep.
related to anxiety?
Sure. So, at the core of anxiety, I have often found that with my clients that the root cause stems actually from a place of non acceptance of self, which
Mm,
is the crux of otherness, right? Like, if we can't accept ourselves, how can we expect to be able to accept someone outside of our own body? If we talk in a pattern of self hate or self criticism or self judgment, that's the attitude that we're going to project. And and that's also the attitude that's going to be reflected back to us, right? Which then
mm,
creates that cycle yet again. Um, Objectifying, labeling, blame shifting, identifying identifying as a victim
mm.
are all ways that we can create an otherness within ourselves, which leads to toxic beliefs that then manifest in mental and physical bodies as anxiety.
Wow. I mean, you summed it up so simply and beautifully. And another word that comes to mind is judgment.
Yeah,
That's kind of, I've experienced a lot of that in my life.
yeah,
And I have
yeah,
a lot of that within myself that still shows up when I'm not aware.
yeah.
But I love, not to make it about me, but I just, when you were saying that, I was like, judgment, judgment. Oh, story of my life. So, what are some characteristics of anxiety?
Alrighty, so people experiencing anxiety, well, you named one of them, right? That mental cycle of remuneration,
Mm-hmm.
that pattern of negative thoughts, right, that end up being cyclical.
Mm-hmm.
In our physical bodies, anxiety can manifest as muscle tension.
Mm.
People can be irritable for like no apparent reason, right? um, People sometimes get absolutely frozen in fear.
Mm.
Or another physical manifestation can be a whole spectrum of gastrointestinal upsets, right? So, from having esophagus issues to imbalance in the stomach acid to diarrhea and constipation, right? That are just an overall state of nauseousness,
Mm.
nausea. Yeah, let's go with the right English word. Um, Getting there. Um, Anyways, um, so those, I mean, things that seemingly appear unrelated to a a mental, right, what is typically in mainstream referred to as a mental condition, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's really important for individuals working through anxiety or once they acknowledge that they have anxiety to understand that it has physical manifestations.
Mm.
And so, and to the point that, you know, we talk about this cycle of negative thinking, sometimes and quite frequently, people will also accelerate that and say that their mind is racing all of the time and they can't shut it off, right?
Mm.
And that leads to not being able to have satisfying sleep, restless nights, that whole cyclical aspect of insomnia that comes into play. People can experience thyroid problems, or
Mm.
even an irregular heartbeat.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, there are some really tangible aspects to anxiety. Dizziness, headaches, dry mouth, the constant state of feeling like you're always on the edge and like always in a chronic state or consumed by worry and fear. Those are
Mm.
those are ways that many people experience anxiety. Now, what's really interesting is there's something called high functioning anxiety, okay?
Yeah.
And this is typically a group of individuals that hasn't been to a doctor to be diagnosed as an individual with anxiety,
Mhm.
hasn't received medication to mediate their um, anxiety, right? Um, and as a result, that can lead to its own challenges because if, like we were mentioning before, anxiety can sometimes be something that we don't talk about, right? And
Mhm.
we, um, and especially individuals that are in this defined category of high functioning anxiety,
Mhm. Mhm.
people, once they start to recognize that, oh, I actually, underlying all of these physical manifestations is anxiety, right? Once they come to that realization, it can be really challenging asking for help because
Mhm.
from the outside, you've just seemed very successful.
Ah, ooh. And I imagine a little bit of egos in there,
Oh,
because
yeah, I'd imagine a whole lot of egos in there. And so, you know, that's the thing. Like, individuals with high functioning anxiety can appear incredibly calm and collected, passionate about life. Their business is usually tidy and organized, right?
Mhm.
And they're really attentive to details. Not bad qualities at all, right? Like
Yeah.
these are positive. They can be really positive things, right? But what's happening on the inside, right, is that the individual is experiencing significant mental and physical fatigue. Um, they may be completely intimidated about the future. We talked about being frozen about fear, right?
Yeah, yeah.
They can also tend to be people pleasers, um, both afraid of driving people away and at the same time afraid of letting other people down.
Mm.
Their schedules tend to be overbooked, and even in their daily functioning life, they tend to be little busy bees, right? Like always on the move, got to do this, I got a list to check off, right? I
Yeah.
got things to handle. The concept of pausing is kind of not there, right?
Oh, I just feel like society wants us to be high
Yes.
functioning anxiety people. Like
Yes.
we're seen as lazy if we pause or boring,
Yes.
or I feel like I've gotten that message like, oh, you're boring because you do less and
Exactly.
you relax. And maybe that's changing now with the landscape of like post 2020.
Right.
But yeah, that society wants us to burn out basically.
Right. Yes. And Ashley, you bring up a like that's what makes it so challenging. That's what makes it so challenging to talk about. That's what makes it
Mm.
so challenging to separate our identity, right, from being high achieving and matching it with our physical need to actually have a healthy nervous system,
Mm,
right? And a healthy endocrine system. Because we can do both. We just need to figure out what that is for our own rhythms.
mm. So I imagine the motivator, like if you're thinking in terms of, well, I want to be successful, but I also want to have a regulated nervous system. I mean, I think the long term game is, or the long term deal is, as long as you can be true to your nervous system and find balance, you're not going to have any horrible, or, it's less likely you're going to have some horrible, something that happens to you physically or mentally down the line. If you work now on the more sustainable route, right? I mean, that's the motivation.
Right, exactly. And in addition to that, like as you're doing the training now, ultimately what you are building is your resilience,
Mm,
right? The strength of your nervous system to when when we do have those intense moments in life, when we do have those challenges, to not get stuck in that cycle
mm,
of being swept away in the challenge, right? But in fact, we having the strength built up in our nervous system to go, holy cow, that was intense. Um, and but here's my anchor. I got this. I'm going to
yeah.
come back to this, right? I know how to breathe through this. I know how to move through this. I I'm no longer dictated by the circumstances that are surrounding me, but
Mm.
my calmness comes from within me, right? And so even when I'm in the middle of a hurricane, I got this.
I cannot think of a more attractive quality in a person.
Right. Yeah, right. Like that ability to not experience this, right? Like not have that so excessive vibrational energy that you create excessive heat within your body, right?
Mm.
That you can go, holy cow, there's a sandstorm around me, right? I've got a whole bunch of heat and a whole bunch of nervous energy surrounding me, and I can be the water.
Mm. Yeah. And it will happen.
Yeah.
Rest assured, there's going to be moments in the future that are stressful. It's inevitable. Like it's gonna
Yes, it is.
happen. Somewhat recently, I had the wonderful Scout Shavers on the show. When you get a chance, check it out. It's episode 22, Yoga and Birth. Scout is a birth worker, a birth educator, a doula, a yoga teacher, and the founder of the organization Birth Wild Awake. This organization specifically supports Black, Indigenous, people of color, the doulas, as well as the families. The money is strictly used to provide educational scholarships to these doulas seeking mentorships and skill set to support these families. You may or may not already know, but systematic racism starts at birth. And I really believe in supporting this organization because there is such a need for more support in this particular area of the community. There's a couple of ways you can contribute to her organization. You can either give directly to Birth Wild Awake on Scout's website, scoutwildawake.com/donate. The link to that is in the show notes. There's a donate button that you can click on once you get there, or you can also buy her t shirts on her website. I have a t shirt and they are wonderful. They're soft, they fit well, and are high quality. They say on the front of them, Black birthing lives matter. I love mine. I wear it all the time. If you're able, please consider supporting Birth Wild Awake. So we talked about the high functioning anxiety, but I'm curious about the social anxiety. What do you have to say about that?
Sure. And so social anxiety, We can sometimes people have said that 2020 was a blessing for individuals with social anxiety, right? Because now you had a socially accepted excuse
Yeah.
to say, I'm not going to meet with you, right?
Yeah.
Like it was became socially acceptable. Whereas before, there might have been times where you were like declining invitations because you were anxious about being around loud sounds, being in crowds, right? And in 2020 gave individuals that opportunity to say, I I can decline your invitation and I don't have to feel guilty about it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And um and so we can work on that. Through yoga, we can work together on coming into a space where the loud sounds don't trigger you anymore, right?
Mm.
That the constant presence of unknown people around you, like that bubble that you want to be in, right? Learning ways to allow yourself to be in that bubble, to create that bubble for you, of whatever size you need it to be, and still be able to not miss out on opportunities in life, right? To not remove yourself so much that you also remove the joy
Mm.
that comes with connection with social interactions and social engagement, right? One of the things that has been proven by research so much is that as human beings, we actually need and thrive and can be our best selves when we have a positive support network, right? And that has been proven again and again by research.
Mm.
And it's a part of social anxiety that is what's causing the anxiety, right?
Mhm.
And so how do I get that? How do I get the balance between being engaged but being shut down by fear, right?
Mm.
And so the approach of helping somebody transition from that space, one space to another, right, looks a lot different than it does for individuals with high functioning anxiety.
Mm. Could you give an example of like what method through yoga you might use to ease someone into getting away from the fear that is social anxiety so they can be a little more adaptable, a little more comfortable in a social situation?
Sure. So one great technique that's yogic technique would be increasing the strength of somebody's auric field, right?
Mm.
That's our protection bubble, right? And um, oftentimes, so trauma is also stored in our arc line. And as women, we have two arc lines. We have our arc line that goes from our ear to our ear, right?
Oh.
And that's it also in common with all genders. Okay, everyone's going to have this ear to ear arc line, but as female dominant energy, we have a second arc line, and that is across our chest.
Oh.
And this is where trauma is stored. And so as we process through trauma, whatever initially triggered that belief, that underlying belief that social events are fearful, right? There at some point, what likely was a traumatic event, and so we can work directly with the arc line, and we can work on that auric field. And what those two aspects are going to help individuals increase their sense of protection around themselves,
Mm.
right? And we start there, right? We got to start here before we can
Mhm.
even start to go outside, right? We've got to be able to feel safe within our body, safe within our minds, right?
Mm.
And we can do that by bringing awareness to where that belief initially came from, and oftentimes it's related back to a traumatic event.
Wow, I love this angle on the arc line. I've never heard of that before, and I work with highly sensitive and empathic individuals, and
Right.
social anxiety is also a thing.
Yep.
It's more of a human sponge absorbing everything. Everything's on volume 12, and so my approach with them is like self care before, during, and after, and limit that time. Like
Yep.
take little bitty bites and
Yes.
bigger bites, because
Yes.
over time you do build resiliency. And we're here to live our best life. We're here to enjoy,
Right.
and when you let fear take over your life, as we know, like you're denying yourself joy, and,
Exactly.
and giving, and others, giving your best self to the world as well. Like we're
Exactly.
here to do that, give our world our gifts.
Yep.
um what Okay, so we touched on characteristics of anxiety. I could we could do a whole episode about social anxiety. I have so many more questions, and high functioning anxiety, and we'll save that for in the future. I want to hear your thoughts about how nature helps with anxiety, because you have
Sure.
some really interesting points.
Sure. Sure. So I absolutely love that you asked this because um, I'm a big fan of playing in nature. And I also love that we live on a planet that actually supports us to all the way down to our cellular level, right? And
Mm.
um, when we're experiencing anxiety, we can really forget that and lose sight of that, right?
Mhm.
So, from a yogic perspective, nature is one of the ways that we can access prana, prana
Mm.
being life force, right?
Mhm.
From a scientific perspective, nature and specifically moving water, so rivers, waterfalls, oceans, these actually create negative ions.
Mm.
And negative ions have a positive impact on increasing serotonin levels,
Mm.
which is one of the hormones that helps our bodies to process stress. It also helps us to increase our daytime energy and
Mm.
can aid in actually lowering our sense of depression. And so it has a really significant impact on the mental state of us as human beings. And so go play outside. Yes,
Yeah.
you like go play outside, go run through the river, go splash yourself with some cold water, like I mean if you can't if there is like, you know, if you are absolutely in a space where there is no access to cold running water, right? That's in nature, take a hose and stand under it, okay? Like,
My neighbors, my neighbors will be scratching their head, but
that's right. Put your sprinkler system out and, run through the sprinkler system and, literally, like, it will do your body a world of good. So,
what about just a bath? Like, does that create negative ions, or not?
A bath won't, because typically a bath is going to be warm and it's typically going to be stagnant if we're talking about a tub.
Oh, okay.
Okay. But there are also benefits to hydrotherapy, right? We
Yes.
talk and so typically hydrotherapy would be one of the ways that we see it in yoga anyways is cold showers.
Okay.
And so um, depending on what's how the body is how the body has manifested the anxiety. So um, depending on what's going on with the nervous system,
Mhm.
um, there are times where a bath can be in exactly what the individual needs. Okay. So I don't want to miscommunicate that, but I just want
Mhm.
to let you know that that's not creating negative ions.
I see.
So yeah, there are definitely benefits to having a bath. um, and working with water in that regard, and being intentional about, you know, different aspects of hydrotherapy. But
Mhm.
as far as the negative ions go, it's really that movement of water that's helping with that. So
And I've heard this, and I don't know if it's true or not, but is it because to get an idea of what negative ions are, I always heard right before it rains, there's just like a different atmosphere in the air. You can even smell it smells a little different. Is that negative ions?
that um, I think that's when our systems kind of tune into them a bit more,
I
right?
cool.
Yeah, because we definitely, I mean, you like when you go in the presence of a waterfall, right? The air smells different, the air
Yes.
tastes different, right? And that's, I think that's probably more our attunement into what is present there.
Okay. So there's more. You feel it more.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
Cool. What advice do you give to someone who has anxiety currently, and specifically for high functioning anxiety? Like what would be something really simple people could start doing? Or
Yeah. Um, it really comes down to awareness, right? So one tip that I would give is learn what triggers your anxiety. And one way to do that is to keep a notebook nearby, right? Doesn't
mm,
have to be anything significant. It's just a way to keep the the information in one cohesive area, right? And when you start to notice that you're anxious, start to write what start to write down what's going on in and around you. And so, did you experience a shift in your body when you ate something? Right? Did it cause an irregular heartbeat after you ate a particular food? Um, did that then shift your mental thought process, right? Were you on the phone with a specific person? Were there specific sounds or lights around you when you started to notice a shift in your own rhythm, right? When you started to acknowledge that you were having a bit of anxiety.
mm,
The benefit of writing down our triggers is twofold. One, we start to bring awareness to our patterns,
mm,
right? Two, we also have now tangible physical evidence, right?
mm,
Empirical evidence. And that can be incredibly powerful because we talked about this remuneration, right? And so
mhm,
oftentimes we get ourselves stuck in a cycle, right?
mhm,
And we, individuals that experience anxiety on a regular basis will tend to overthink, right? And hyperanalyze. And all of a sudden, the the actual factual of the trigger, right,
Mm-hmm.
gets manipulated in our minds, right? And um, writing it down breaks that cycle so that you can actually go back and go, you know what? Before I had that phone call, you know, this is what happened, and then I had that phone call, right? And this is how I felt after that phone call, right? But it was actually the event before the phone call that was my
Mm,
trigger, right? Maybe you ended up not having a positive phone call, right?
yeah.
But and you and initially our thinking might go to I'm mad at that person,
Yeah.
right? But if we step back a minute and go, oh, I actually started to feel this way before I got on the phone.
So it's like your own detective on
Hmm.
detecting what
Hmm.
is causing the stress in your life.
Exactly. Exactly. Yep. And you asked specifically about high functioning anxiety individuals, and I would like to offer this specifically to individuals experiencing high functioning anxiety that your achievements are not a result of your anxiety. Please,
Oh,
yeah, please seek help. You deserve it. It's not worth keeping yourself bottled up. Um, you know, we all sometimes have to play uh, Clark Kent, right?
yeah. Yeah.
But we're not Clark Kent. So um, stop trying to Clark Kent it.
Mm, that is some good advice.
So,
Yeah. So let's talk more about you and what you're curious about right now. What are you curious about these days?
oh man, I am completely fascinated with the human body and its ability to heal.
Mm, yeah.
And so, right now, you mentioned at the top that I'm in the process of studying to be a yoga therapist, and I really love the program with the Guru Ram Dass Center for Medicine and Humanology that because it bridges this allopathic medicine with yogic philosophy and yogic science.
Mm,
And, oftentimes in society, allopathic medicine and yoga are kind of pitted against each other, right?
yeah.
And and I get that, trust me, with my personal history, like I get it. But we can't learn the value of the other path if we never sit down at the same table. And when we show up at that table, you know, coming with a willingness to listen to each other, coming with a willingness to learn from each other, will lead to opportunities to be able to collaborate with one another, right?
Mm,
Um, and going back to that sense of otherness, right? Being able to to say, you know what, you offer a tremendous value, allopathic medicine, right? Offer a tremendous value into understanding the body, right? And being able to do things that yoga can't do. Yoga can't do surgery, right? Like yoga can't do ER, right?
Yeah.
Like, we need each other. And the more that we recognize that we need each other, um, the deeper that we can actually go in our understanding with understanding this gift that we've been given in this physical form, right?
Mm, yeah. So along with becoming, obviously you're going to become a yoga therapist. You're on that pathway. When do you become one? Is it 2022?
2023 will be the official graduation date. So
Yay.
it's quite a journey.
Yeah. So in addition to that, what are your other future plans with your work in yoga?
Sure. So, immediate future wise, I'm pretty excited about two upcoming offers. So, the first one starts actually April 6th, and it is with the other lovely ladies of Body Bliss, Leslie, Jordan Garcia, and Dexy Vaughn. And we are holding a 7-week series on the chakras. So, um, if you are interested in coming into a deeper relationship with yourself and bringing awareness to your patterns, this is a really beautiful offering. And uh, the babes of Body Bliss, are all about getting your groove on. So there's going to be plenty of dancing, yoga, meditation, and reflection because we want you to um, actually tap into your strength that you already embody, right? And bring it to the surface so that you can live it blissfully. So, and the second offer actually is with yours truly, and I'm offering a transforming anxiety course, and it's going to start in June. So, this is a yoga and meditation based course that's actually been scientifically researched and is full of proven tools to help you increase your calmness and increase the balance in your life for those that are suffering and struggle daily with anxiety. So, both of those opportunities are up and coming, and so feel free to email me.
Yeah. Are they online? Or because
Yes, both of those opportunities are going to be fully virtual. So,
yeah,
so world can come together.
that's awesome. So where can people find you online?
Sure. So I'm on Instagram and Facebook. All that is both under Inner Explorer Yoga. .com is the website, and the handles for both IG and Facebook are going to be at Inner Explorer Yoga. My personal profile is Leilani Clark on Facebook, so you're welcome to tap into any of those.
Great. And I'll have all your info linked in the show notes. And then what's your email if they want to email you about those classes?
Exactly. Inner Explorer Yoga at gmail.com. So,
Oh, thank you so much, Leilani, for coming on the show. It was such a pleasure to have you on and get to know more about anxiety and yoga.
thank you, Ashley. It's been an honor, and again, I really appreciate your energy and being able to explore this topic with you. So,
Yay. Well, we'll be in touch soon. So have a good day.
all right, thanks. You too.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode all about yoga and anxiety with the knowledgeable Leilani Clark. Do yourself a favor and connect and follow Leilani. All of her links are in the show notes, so you're just one click away from connecting with her. From this conversation, I definitely feel like there's more to uncover for future episodes. As we can tell, Leilani is a wealth of knowledge, and I hope to have her back on the show again, covering more topics in the future. Maybe do an episode on yoga and depression or yoga and social anxiety. If there's anything in particular that piqued your interest from today's conversation and you'd like us to elaborate further, please email us and let us know. Our email is yogaandpodcast@gmail.com. You can also email us if you would like to apply to be a guest on the show. So the and is spelled out, YOGAAND podcast@gmail. If you liked what you heard, please share the show with your friends. Word of mouth is simply the best way and the most organic way to promote the show, and it is very much appreciated. Also, hit that subscribe button if you would like us to keep going. Please consider joining our official yoga and podcast Patreon. There are great member perks such as virtual yoga and Pilates with me. You get a shout out on the show. We send you podcast stickers and a love note when you sign up. You can find out that info also linked in the show notes. If you would like to help the podcast, please leave us a glowing 5-star review on Apple Podcast or wherever you get your podcast. Let us know and we'll send you podcast stickers and a love note as a thank you. Please follow us on Instagram. Our handle is also Yoga and Podcast. The theme song is by Ali Holder. Sound engineering and mixing by Bentley the Cat. Guest booking and social media by Chloe the Kitty. Remember that this podcast is for simply everyone. If you're a human living on planet Earth, you might benefit from listening to Yoga and Podcast. See you next week.